Okay, so I know this is like a how-to channel, but this is not really a how-to video. It's more how I did it, and not necessarily how you should do it. Maybe you'll learn a little bit from this. Maybe you'll get a couple ideas. But today we're doing turf. Been working on it for a while, and well, let's see how it turns out. Here are some of the tools of the trade. Definitely need the level, so that way you can level things out. Tamper, got to smooth it out beneath to dig stuff up, and you definitely need the sharpshooter shovel in order to get the flags in there. One thing we did here, per the advice of a pro-ish, I say ish because basically using this board here, we're going to staple the turf to the board, helps it stay taut for a longer period of time. Now, the difference I say ish is because he didn't say just get cheap, 1x2 or 2x2. In that case, he said, to use some more sort of board or something. So all we did was get normal 1x2 and threw some, boiled linseed oil on it, right? To help protect it a little bit, but time will tell how long it lasts. And as I haven't even put in the turf yet, we don't even know if it's gonna work. No, it'll work. It'll work, okay? Calm down.
But first, let me show you what we started with. Unfortunately, I don't have a better before picture than this. This was kind of a grassy area, but the grass didn't grow well because of lack of sun, not good water. This was a water feature the previous owner installed that didn't actually work. So it just collected water there and was mosquito paradise, which is obviously not what you want in your backyard. This was mostly just dirt with weeds, things like that. So first, got the weed eater, buzzed this all down to nothing. And then collected all that. That's what's over here. Next, you got to consider drainage. If you have downspouts, gutters coming into this area, you don't want it washing away what's underneath your turf. So what we did, as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different spots where water comes down. So we connected it to this pipe. It's all corrugated, perforated, so that way the water goes out even as it drains. Keep it on the slope. Make sure it all goes down. You don't want it to pool, the water to stop flowing in one specific area. And then as you see, it goes all the way out here to the front, goes down to the street. Drainage has been perfect so far. After that, when you want to put some road base down, which is, you have bigger rocks in there, not big rocks, but something that the water can go through, but is still a base for where you can put your crushed granite on top of, which is what we use again here in South Texas. You may have a different material in your part of the world or your part of the US, but something that's a fine rock that you can tamp down. I got this from a little local rental place, tool rental that is. You can get one from something like that, and it just makes it so much better. You can do it by hand, but this makes it easier and it compacts better than you would be able to do by hand. First, you wet it down, get the hose, give it a good soaking, make sure it's nice and wet, and then this just pushes it all down, makes it nice and compact, from which you have a good foundation to do your turf. And then,
Time to get turf going.
so first things first, you got to roll out your turf. Wow, that's a dead spot. Yikes. Anyway, it is the most expensive part of this. And all in all, this was about $5,000–6,000. The turf itself was about $2,000 here. And you can get cheaper stuff. Go to Home Depot and you can get it for cheaper. But the quality is, there's a big difference between just the thickness, the durability, materials, and everything. So roll it all out. Next, I'm brushing this off so that way I can tack it cleanly, the turf, to the 1x2 and 2x2 over there. Next, gonna bring it on over. Look at this instant transformation. The granite itself, also, that was a few $100. The road base underneath, that was a few hundred. The corrugated pipe I showed you earlier, that was like $100 or so, and it all adds up. The biggest expense, though, is the turf. You can cheap out, but as far as longevity and the quality, you're just not going to get it. Make sure you get some knee pads, too. Those are a game changer. Those are, doing this without any knee pads, no thank you. Next, there's this excess to the turf itself. Just cut that off so that way it goes on nice and clean. And there's a little bump right there, but don't worry, it'll get better. All right, let's speed up the video. If only while I was doing this, I could have just done time lapse. Would have made this a lot faster. But cut it around where you're going for. Cut it around the places that you need to cut it out, and then start stapling it down. This staple gun that I got in particular worked great because you pressed it forward toward where the staple wanted to go instead of pressing away from where it goes like standard ones do. Anyway, link in the description for some of that, and this sort of the stuff I use. Wow, that's a great angle. Can't even see anything. All right, move it, and yep, it's gonna fall. That's perfect. Staple it all down. Make sure it's all smooth, though you are going to be able to get those wrinkles and dimples out later, but a little bit, but it's best just to get them out as much as you can at the start. Next, going to start cutting out. You can always cut off more. You can always cut off more, but if you cut off too much, it makes it a little bit harder to go back and add it later. So definitely I recommend speeding up the video, put on 1.5 speed. I know, I'll speed it up for you. See, look at that. Hey, so much faster. Anyway, cut this all off and fold up your excess nicely, just because that's nice. So what I did, we did it in 2 pieces. We didn't want to have a lot of extra because again, you just pay for it by the roll, and it comes in 12-foot, 15-foot sections depending on where you get it from. This was about 10 feet wide is what we had. So measure twice, cut once. So I'm measuring out. You cut it nicely across. The good thing with this one, it was pretty easy just to cut it straight. You can see on the back side. Here's my brother coming out talking to me. Hey, how's it going? I'm working. So I go back to it and cutting it around the areas you need to cut around. But you will have extra. Whenever you turf, you will have extra. So just keep that in mind with your budget. You're going to have to buy more. But we decided, hey, let's have as little extra as possible instead of one roll going all the way, which we're going to do on the putting green. But for the turf side, we'll have a seam. But you'll see how I get, kind of make that seam look good there in the end. All right. Think. Start stapling. It takes a while. All right, let's go to the next part. And you can see the seam once I lay this out here. But as you see, even from the get-go, you're like, all right, looks all right. What I'm doing here is tucking the one I just laid out underneath the first one because the grass falls a certain way. When you brush in the sand later on, you want to brush against the grain. And what I'm doing here is making sure that the way it falls down is falling on top of. That way, eliminate as much seam as you can, make it look good. Get it nice and flat, because once you staple it down and even weigh it down with the sand and the staples, as well as the yard staples, which you'll see in a minute, it would be difficult to change later. So cut off a little bit more because sometimes you have a nice straight line. Other times like this, the line is not straight. So go little by little and speed up the video. From there, you just cut off what you need. Make sure your tools aren't in the way. Definitely want to get those out of the way. And then keep on going. You're almost there. Almost. Good.
Adorable. Huh? Adorable? Adorable? You scared the heck out of me.
Sorry.
It's like when your sister-in-law scares you, you weren't ready for it. So here's where we're at. You see the creases or the seams or seams really. But it's coming together.
These are the yard staples I was talking about. So what it is, so a staple, put it on one side of the turf, put it on the other, or one side of the seam and the other side of the seam, and just hammer it all down. Make sure it's nice and flat. Take your time with this. And then as you're doing it, you'll see the seam just disappears. But you also, hammer it down. And what I'm doing right there is tucking, pulling out any of the grass blades turf blades that were underneath. That way it covers it up nicely. And in the end, these things just disappear. You just can't see them at all. Hammer them nice and neat. This is why you want to make sure you have a good amount of base and granite underneath, so that way it can actually have something to go down into. If you have roots underneath, if you have large rocks underneath, you're just not going to be able to drive these things in, and they won't be able to hold it down for a long time anyway. So just keep going, staple it all down. Every few inches or so is where you need another one. The more you do, the more secure it's going to be. And again, just the blades will cover it up. Just pull them out and tuck them under, and it'll look good. Next was the sand, because with the sand, you'll see I just do a couple there's probably a better way of doing this for sure. You get one of those Scotch things and you spread it out all nice and neat. But this actually worked. And I only used a couple here in the video, but I used about 8 more bags, maybe even 10, in this area alone. And when you brush it in, you just go brush it in against the grain. So pour out a bunch of it, and then it's all going to brush in. Right now, obviously, that looks terrible. But once you get your broom, get your push broom, bam, disappears. It goes right under, and it weighs down your turf so that way it doesn't go anywhere. You also want to make sure you use sand specifically for this, because otherwise, you use normal sand, stuff can get down in there, and bacteria can grow, and it just gets all nasty. So make sure you use this antimicrobial stuff that they have. It just works better for you in the end.
And here's where we're at. Got some of those finer pieces in there. That's a different piece from that. Cut this here. Starting to fill in this area as well, since it was, you see down here I need to add some more. Just get some smaller pieces, throw some staples in there, and then I'll go back and cover it up. Because the staples here that I've used, can't even see them. Of course, that's because I'm using the wide angle lens, but no, even still, look, can't see it. So here's the plan. Got to get this all smooth. It's starting to bubble just a little bit down there. Staple it down, get this edge smooth here as well, and then throw a little bit more sand perhaps. But next, let's tackle this putting green.
All right, for the putting green, there is a lot. First, you gotta get clean, of course, and level it out. I wish I had leveled it out more. I decided to leave it, hey, let's leave it not just flat, so that way it's more fun. But it turned it into like a trick golf course, basically, right? Like the ball is going left and right the whole time. So not very realistic and more just difficult. Which, hey, if that's what you want, go for it. But I even smoothed it out after like a week or so after I put the turf down. Heavy rain, and I was able to flatten it out a little bit more. But flatten it out as much as you want. And then let's lay the turf on. For this, we just used one roll because we didn't want to have a seam in the middle of the putting green or on the edge, on the side, whatever it was. Decide, hey, let's just have it closer to just having one cover, right? One piece, and that worked well for us. Have your niece come out there and help you. You can always cut off more. I'll say it again. Foreshadowing, hint, hint, wink, wink, because otherwise you can always cut off more. But it's harder to add on after you've cut short. So cut this all off, speed up your video, and let's see where we're at. It's looking good already. See, slowly, you take your time. You flatten it out, pull it out a little bit more, stretch it, and make sure it's nice and flat, and then start stapling it down. Of course, I don't cut enough here, cut off enough there, but then I go back and trim it up. Oh, look at that, looking good. I will say for the cups as well, you got to make sure, if kids are playing with it, I recommend putting it in concrete, because I didn't, and it stayed well for a while, but when the kids start pulling on those, like it's a lever, pull the lever, then you're going to run into trouble. And those cups didn't last very long. Ah!
Okay, getting the putting green put down. I said it before, you can always cut off more. So don't cut off too much. So close, so close. But getting there, getting close. I'm gonna try to just put in some sand right there, cover that gap, but everything else is coming along. All right, let's see what happens next.
You guessed it. 4 staples. Tack it along the edge. Make sure you have some good helpers too. And you don't need to. You can. The great thing with this job is you really can do it yourself. By yourself. You don't even need to have anyone helping you. If you have someone, 2 people, of course, that's going to make it easier. What I'm doing here is tucking the putting green underneath where the turf comes out, right? Make sure, because again, the blades fold down kind of towards the putting green, so I am just having those make sure they're laying down flat. And look at that, tucking it in under nicely. The putting green is shorter than the turf, but that's just, or if you're using fringe around your putting green, something like that, it's going to be fine in the end. Tuck it under. Looks good. Looking good. Look at that. Next, cut around your edges. I came back and filled in that piece behind the drain. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I got it. I got it. And if you have an area that's like this, where it's not just flat and smooth, take your time. Just cut off little by little, because, and then, you know, it'll fit. It'll fit well. And then I got a little strip to cover up the part that, you know, I cut too much off. And took my time, made sure you actually make this part a little bit big, so that way it'll fit nice and snug. If it's too small, then it's going to be loose in there. It's not going to fit. So make sure it fits that seam there well. And in the end, you couldn't even tell. Staple down is good. Use more staples. It really has helped well. Again, this has been months now by the time this is actually done, and a year almost now. It is still solid. After that, blow it off, clean it, and then it's time for sand. I will say you should use finer sand, because I use the same amount of grit sand for this as I did for the turf, and it really just, instead of brushing in, it was much more difficult. It just pushed it around a lot, and some of it went in, but not all of it. So use a finer sand. It's going to work better. You know, even my niece tried a little bit, right? And she wasn't able to get it in. But either way, make sure you get a finer sand. But you do need to put a fair amount on there. Once we got a good amount of sand on there, the ball just rolls nice and smooth. It's solid, as though you're at you know, a real golf course. So put a lot of sand on it, yes, but make sure it's nice and fine. Next, clean it all off, and like I'm just telling you, it looks so good. It's so clean compared to a normal backyard. You blow it off. Stuff does get on there, just blow it off, and you're good. We did have some extra. Haul that out of there, and you're good to go. I would say also I put some more yard staples here in the grass, which I'll show you in just a second. But you see, it's not really going in. I just pushed it around, and eventually did go in, but it took a lot more effort. Next, got to cut out those holes for the cups. Like I said, you know, these were solid, and tamp them down. I didn't show you that part, my bad. But you dig it out, you tamp it down, make sure it's nice and solid. I would have put concrete, because the more you pull it in and out, it just loosens up where the hole is in. So dig it all out and then brush it off. It's gonna look good. Well, there you go. Not all the way done, but the flags come in and out, and seem to stay for the most part. Got some water on there. Hopefully that'll settle. Gonna throw some more sand on there in a little bit, but overall, that gap filled in nicely. You can see the line there if you really look, but it's all coming together. See, still I got a bit of sand there in the corner, but still a little bit of work to do. The final steps, but I like it. So what else should I do? Figure it out. All right, see you tomorrow. Tomorrow? What am I talking about? I guess you could take multiple days to watch the video. It is longer than usual, but it's a long process. I want to let you see that it really, you gotta take your time with it. It does take a while. It does cost a lot, but it does cost about half, or even more, less than half of what a pro would charge. We got a few quotes before doing it ourselves, and I say we. My brother did some of it too, but for the most part, it was just me. You know, don't tell him that, but he may have something else to say about it. Either way, you will save money, but again, it's still not a cheap thing to do. I would also say for the putting green cups, to make sure you leave about a quarter of an or an eighth of an inch above the concrete or whatever you use, so that way the putting green will be nice and flush up against it, and it'll just drop smooth. I'm putting in more yard stakes here, and if you can't do a border edge like I did, just do these yard staples rather all over, and that'll keep it nice and taut for a long time. The more you do, the more strong it will be. And there you have it. She's all done. Got those filled in right there. Just gotta
filled in along there. Trim down the edges, a little more smooth along that. And the putting green. So, putting green right there. Done. Except for the sand, but I'll get that done. So you can still see, if you get close enough, there's some sand, especially right here on the edges. You can see it for sure, right there in that part. But gonna get some finer sand put down there, as I've mentioned. Aside from that, we're done. Can hang up a little bar here, little basket, so we can put the golf balls in there, so the kids don't just throw them over the fence and whatnot. But that's how I did it. Is that how you should do it? Maybe, maybe not. Hopefully you can learn from my mistakes and tell me what I should have done, right? What would have been helpful? What would have been better? But this is how I turned this backyard into a putting green. All right, don't forget, you can do it.
Nope. Closer. And ah, yeah.